Item number 2 is the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion or any addition or deletions to the agenda? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Yes, there's an item on here that Councillor Durkee was supposed to speak to, and I cannot put my fingers on it right at this time. Item 7.1, I'd like to, on her request, I'd like to defer that to the next regularly scheduled council meeting in January.
Okay. Okay. That could be. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, as an amendment to. Yep. Yep. Anything else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Deputy Warden Cunningham and seconded by Councillor Cushion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Declaration of any conflict of interest, item number 3. Is there anybody see anything in there that they'd have? Go ahead, Councillor Cushion.
Yes, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest in 8.9, Bay Shore Community Club.
At this time, I'd ask all councillors to speak into their microphones, kind of move it a little closer or to you. Thank you very much. Is that the only conflict of interest at this time? Item number 4, approval of the minutes. You have that in your package. November 28th regular, November 28th in camera, and November 28th public transcript. Go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
I move for the approval of the minutes of November the 28th, 2018 regular council meeting minutes, November 28th, 2018 in-camera meeting minutes, and November the 28th, 2018 public transcript.
Okay. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Cushion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 5, Warden's remarks. Boy, you're all in luck tonight. Very short. As we're all well aware, on December 5th, we had a retirement from the municipality of Yarmouth and the municipality of Argyll, in that Brad Fulton is retiring from the DPC office in Argyll. Just to let the general public know, and those in the audience this evening, that Brad Fulton had worked for the municipality of Yarmouth for many years as both the building inspector and the development officer. He then moved into the District Planning Commission, which was to do work for both the municipality of Yarmouth and the municipality of Argyll. And after many years, Brad and his wife are going to take some time to do some vacationing and so on, and I believe they plan on taking a trip to Europe, was it not? Yes, and they've been and back. Whoa, man, he moves fast when he's retired. No, and on behalf of the municipality, we wish him all the best in his retirement and enjoy it. A lot of people will know Brad from, he sings in with the Shantymen and so on. Brad also enjoys, and a lot of people don't know this, that Brad enjoys very much playing of the violin, and he also builds violins and so on. So he has a nice retirement hobby to do and so on. Again, we wish him all the best. On December 7th, here at the municipality of Yarmouth, we had our Christmas tree lighting. I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of the staff that spent time helping organize and participated that evening in the festivities and so on. To the councillors that were here, had the opportunity to be here to meet with the public. I think everybody enjoyed themselves. I did take time to go into the kitchen, not to cook by any means, and I did try to eat a few cookies, but they they kind of put the stop to me on that. But it was amazing to see the little kids really enjoying themselves with a lot of them with their grandparents and with their parents decorating cookies for Christmas and so on. Now, whether they're going to be around Christmas morning or not to eat, I kind of got my doubts. Probably the grandparents probably ate them by now, but other than that, it was a nice evening and so on, and it was enjoyed by everybody that was here. The municipal office will be closed on December 24th at 12:30, noontime. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, 12:30. I meant to put 12. I apologize. The other thing that's been really surprising so far in the month of December, and we're not even into winter, I guess the first day of winter is December 21st, and we've had a large amount of snow already, and that snow has caused a few issues. So from the municipality to all the residents in Yarmouth County, when there is snow and freezing rain, please slow down. You may have snow tires on your car. You may be an Indianapolis 500 racing car driver, but snow and ice are not on a racing track, and you should slow down. It's better to be a little late getting to your appointment and not going into the ditch or hitting somebody else. So on behalf of my councillors and staff, please take the opportunity to slow down, spend a little more time getting to where you have to go. We also were well aware of Nova Scotia Power outage and so on that they had across the province here a little over a week ago. And Nova Scotia Power has been very astute at trying to get out the information that the equipment that they have, that when there is a major issue or a major break, that some of their switching equipment will shut down other parts of the province in order to protect the system. And they've been trying to put that out there to the public, and I believe we have some information in our package here this evening. We've been fortunate, as we're all well aware of. Monday was a decent day. Tuesday was a little different, and today we look out and we see what the weather here in Southwest Nova go from good day to bad day to good day again. So we're fortunate if there is power outage, usually they can get back out and get it up and going in for us. On behalf of the council, I'd like to wish each and everyone in the municipality a very Merry Christmas. Have a safe holiday, enjoy oneself, and we'll see everybody in the new year. Thank you. Item number 6, presentations. 6.1, presentation to Joe Bashera, Maple Grove and Yarmouth High Memorial Club, 7:10. I'm 5 minutes late, and for a politician only be 5 minutes late, that's a good thing, and so on. I'd ask Mr. Bashera to come down and meet me down front, if you would, please. Mr. Bashera. You have to face the camera. This camera thing. Serious. I know you didn't do your hair, but that's all right, eh? Awesome. Mr. Bashera, I'm going to say a few words before our next presentation. So I don't know. I know you're a little older than me, so I don't know. Does he need a chair to sit in? Because his legs are. Mr. Bashera, Joe, and I'm going to call you Joe, please, if I may. Yes. Yes, we have. Joe, many years ago, when you didn't have anything else to do as a teacher, you took on I would call it a challenge. You had an idea. And you took that idea, and I believe Yarmouth County is very fortunate that you took that idea and you brought it to premonition. Your idea was to start an organization that would do a lot of good in the municipality. And over the years, I don't know if you realized it or not, but I think you taught a lot of young people one of the most important things that we as seniors need and want, and that is respect. And I believe each and every one of the children, or the young students that went through that organization benefited greatly in coming out knowing respect, how to show respect, and how to receive respect from other people. That challenge, when you took it on, or that thought when you started, I don't think was that. It was to do something good. Do something good for the veterans. And I don't know if there's words that can honestly express what I'm feeling, what my fellow counselors feel towards the great work that you've done with each and every one of those students. And I asked Linda the other day if she might know how many. So she had no idea. Do you have an idea of how many students that you would have in all those years? Because I know the group, the organization was large each and every year. Yes.
That was before a lot of things came.
I know. Yeah. To be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if you've done over 5,000 young people through that organization, Joe. A lot of years, a lot of dedication from them, but one of the most important things was the dedication from you, the driving force, to keep that organization going and to make it what it is, but also, and I'm not missing and so on, it wasn't just you. I know that there is a little bit of a congregation here. I don't know if you had to pay them to come or not, and I know you didn't, but you had a lot of chaperones, you had a lot of support from the family members and so on, because they were so overjoyed that you've taken their student or their child and put them on a track of goodness, respect, and challenge them to move forward with their life, to do good. And so on. So at this time, the municipality would like to present you with a small token of our appreciation for all the hard work, the dedication that you've done for many of those students that live in the municipality, but also in the town of Yarmouth and so on. It's just been overwhelming. So a small token of appreciation there, but we also have a little special token. These are something from the municipality that only a few people have, and it gives me great pleasure to present it to you, one of them, to you this evening. What was that? No, it's not. No, it's not. They're a small token, Joe, of our appreciation for all your hard work you do with them. I think you find that a lot of these people here enjoy the organization, but lots of times it's the person in the center that does that work, and that's why they do it, because you were that person, Joe. And we're going to miss you. We're going to miss the organization, and we really are. You've done a lot of good. I was always proud when I watched him in Halifax at an FCM. We were having an FCM conference, and you folks were doing a presentation down in this Grand Parade Square. And you don't know how proud I was when I was standing out there watching those young people doing what they were doing, respecting the veterans and so on. It gave my heart a great uplift. So, you know, you touched a lot of people and so on.
Well, it was the same when we started, we started.
Yes, yes. Again, Joe, thank you very much. But we have a small surprise. Would each and every one of your entourage please come forward? We have a presentation for you. Yes. Just line up here, please. The deputy warden did something.
Thank you very much for everything you've done for the municipality of Yarmouth and the whole area as a whole. It's all open for everything. Thank you very much. There you go. Thank you very much. 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 Last one.
No, we're gonna do that separate, John. We do it separate, we're gonna do it separate. But again, as the deputy warden said, thank you very much for your dedication to the organization, to the chaperone. I know I only had 3 boys when they grew up. They were a challenge. So when Joe said there was up to 180, 200 kids, he had a challenge. So I'm going to do the top again. Thank you very much. Mr. Gable, would you come forward, please? Debbie.
Easy on him, it's okay.
I know.
Well, he didn't want to separate that camera from himself.
Clifford, when you and I talked the other day, and you told me that you were going to be mentioning about the presentation we're doing here this evening, and you had said that Mr. Sheriff had asked you to come take some pictures, and that over all the years, you had done a lot of picture taking for the Memorial Club. And I took it as fun. Man, this is a good opportunity for me and for my deputy warden. John, if you come forward, please. Debbie, you know, you and I go back a long way. We've done a lot of things and so on. And you and I reminisced the other day about all the things from stock car racing and so on, and flying club, and everything that you have done. And a lot of people don't realize the dedication that you've had also to the municipality. And I took it as we mentioned you were coming. I took this opportunity and I asked staff if we would have the opportunity to make a presentation to you because of all your dedication to the Memorial Club. And I believe the Deputy Warden has a small token of our appreciation for what you've done just for the Memorial Club. Being there when they needed them or when they needed you to have a picture, because they've had a lot of special social events that they've done, and you've been there for them. And so on behalf of the municipality, thank you for being there to help them along their road. Clifford?
Thank you very much. So I hope you won't make fun of me now when I go bring my chainsaw to the exhibition that broke that year.
Cliffy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you get a picture? You don't have a Get it on, Cliffy, you come back here. Me and John, we'll stand for you again, Cliffy. We don't do this for a lot of people, but. Just to let the general public know, when we had the movie, the Lighthouse was being shot here at the light station in Vaughan, and they asked me about somebody being able to take some aerial shots and so on and other footage, and I hooked him up with the location manager, Mr. Clark. The movie's all over and done. Well, I was in Halifax here 2 months ago, Clifford. I got a telephone call from Sean Clark, Leland, that gentleman that got the aerial shots, yes, you couldn't give me his phone number or hook me up with him again. He said there's another organization, another company that's in Yarmouth, and they like to get some aerial shots of Yarmouth. So I called Clifford. Clifford was wasn't able to do it, but he lined somebody else up for them to take the shots and so on. So, hey, always out there serving, but I appreciate it.
Thank you so much on behalf of all of us, much appreciated. We're coming back though.
Hurry up.
We want to say thank you, but this was the plan before tonight, so.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
We'll see you later on.
okay. Thank you very much. And thank you guys. Item number 7, business arising. 7.1 was the Port Maitland fog alarm building that has been moved to a future meeting. 7.2, the amendment to Mariner Center agreement. There's a motion required. You have that in your package. What is the wishes of council at this time?
If I could, Mr. Warden.
Ed?
So all 3 municipal units who have ownership of the Mariner Center have ratified the amendment to the agreement. So what we require now is direction from council to draft a letter to the chairman of the Mariner Center Management Authority and the manager of the Management Authority to let them know that the change has been made and that you'll be making your council appointment.
Okay. So we understand what, as you're all well aware, that we're going to be putting on an elected person onto the board. We will be removing 1 citizen rep from each one of the municipal units and putting on an elected person, and that's what it is. So I would like to have a motion to,
Write the letter.
to write the letter. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'll make that motion that the amendment to the Mariners Center's agreement to have a citizen removed from each municipality and having a council appointment from each municipality for that committee.
The motion is just for the letter.
Just for the letter.
Just for
Okay.
the letter. Okay. Been moved by Councillor Cushion. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. 7.3, Ferry Terminal Redevelopment Project. Draft funding agreement. Ferry Terminal Redevelopment Project. You have that in your package. What is the wishes of council? Go ahead, Councillor.
Mr. Chair and Council, as you're well aware, the municipality of District of Yarmouth made a sizable contribution to the ferry terminal redevelopment project, and that, just if folks have looked at the news recently, and I'd like to think in part that's paid dividend. There was an announcement recently that Rod is going to redevelop their hotel. It was made public recently, and reopen the Rod Colony. So that's positive for jobs in Yarmouth, and the ferry redevelopment's necessary. Ferry terminal redevelopment project's necessary to ensure good service for our international ferry and to make things run smoothly. So I think that's a really good news story for Nova Scotia and for Yarmouth County. So given that, I'll move. The other part is that obviously we need an agreement to do that work, and so I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth approve the ferry terminal funding agreement. Specifically, the ferry terminal redevelopment project is circulated, and that agreement is with the town of Yarmouth.
We have a mover. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Been moved by Councillor Trevor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Gerard LeBlanc. Was there further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, you ready for the question? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded? You wish to have that recorded?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Record. The one nay was the deputy warden. Motion carried. (7.4) Rural internet update, action required for information purposes. You have that also in your package, councillors. And I will apologize. I did touch base with the information provided, but I did not go in depth. So if councillors don't mind, I will ask the CAO, Victoria, if she can give us or give me a brief rundown on what that information is, please.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So as you may recall, when the province created the Internet Trust, they tasked Develop Nova Scotia with the responsibility for managing the process around projects. So approving projects, procurement for the build out of the projects and so forth. So this memorandum from the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities is an update that what Develop Nova Scotia has done this month is they've gone to the marketplace and they have put out a call for companies and or municipalities who are interested in a decision on whether or not they would qualify as contractors to build projects. That piece is out in the procurement process now. So essentially what's going to happen, this is called pre-qualification. Once Develop Nova Scotia has identified who has been pre-qualified to bid on projects, when projects go to market, then projects can be submitted for approval. Once projects are approved, then they'll go to market to hire the firms to build them. It has to be this way in order to ensure some of the parameters around the rules for the use of the trust, to ensure that the goal of 95% of Nova Scotians and at that certain speed is achieved. So that's basically just to let you know they're in the marketplace now and they're moving forward as quickly as they can to start flowing money for those build outs. So as you're aware, rural internet is your #1 priority, so this is good news for you.
Is there any discussion on that information? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Count. I can't. Yeah, I'd have to. Lauren, you got to turn yours off.
Oh,
Go ahead, Councillor.
Do they have a timeline for that?
Not for every stage of the process. This particular stage does close on January 16th. So the timelines for every other stage, I think, will be impacted as they come to it, and then they'll set the timeline for the next one.
Is there any other? Deputy Warden, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you all know, for me, this cannot come fast enough. This is something that's been on my agenda for the past, at least past 2 terms, 8 years, and I'm glad to see that there's finally some movement, but I'm kind of disheartened to see that it's being left with a company that was originally, or not a company, the Halifax Waterfront Development Corporation, which was obviously out of Halifax, that they're starting with the project. I am disappointed in that for the simple fact because I don't believe that they really understand the need for rural internet. However, with that said, I'm willing to give them a chance. This, like I said, cannot come fast enough for rural Nova Scotia. And I also have one question to the CAO through you, Mr. Chair, if I may. We had an application put forward federally by our REN. Is that project deemed something that would qualify for this funding that we currently have?
So what the municipal units who were part of that project, what they've done is we've regrouped with the staff at the Wren, and we have taken that project and we have added or taken away from it based on what the qualifications of the internet, we think the Internet Trust will be. One of the main issues we had with that CTI application was that we did not have an internet service provider part of that project. It was kind of a gap. It was a question mark. Now we're working with internet service providers, and so that will give us a better advantage. So the notion is that the legwork that was done in terms of qualifying communities and laying the groundwork to demonstrate that our proposal is significantly impacting the move to reaching 95% of Nova Scotians is designed to meet those metrics. So yes, we've used some of that material, but it's been changed a little bit because this is a different program than CTI.
Yes, I realize that, and thank you very much to the CAO, because she had no idea that I was going to ask that question, and thank you very much for your prompt answer.
If I could, Mr. Warden, just add to that, the Deputy Warden raises, I think, a concern that councils across the province have raised, and that's about the skill set of Develop Nova Scotia for this technical project. So they've acknowledged that under their organization as it was before this assignment did not have any skills for rural internet, and they've hired those skills. What they do have are skills for these mega complex projects that they can transfer to this. So with the addition of technical experts on their team, and then what they've learned from building complex infrastructure projects in the past, the feeling of the province was, this is the organization that can get this done. And I will say, the head of the organization, Jennifer Angel, and her team have been in our community 4 times, and they have a meeting set with me and my team specifically. So they are definitely trying to close that knowledge gap that you pointed out.
Yeah, thank you very much for that input. I appreciate it.
Was there any further questions? I only have one question myself. The federal government at one time had quite a large fund set aside for rural internet and so on. Is Develop Nova Scotia able to tap into? I know they have $193 million at this time. It has grown to $193 million, but when I'll say any Nova Scotia project or rural project comes forward, are they also able to tap into any federal money, do you know, or the only thing that can happen is the $193 million for rural Nova Scotia or for Nova Scotia?
I don't know the answer to that question. I know that the CTI funds are fully allocated, and that was the pot of federal money for rural internet. I'm not sure if any of the projects would qualify for any of the new infrastructure agreement funds. I would have to ask that question.
Because I did, like I say, I did read into some of this and so on, and just going through this again, and my memory serves me right, if all of this falls into place and so on, if I remember right, there won't be any projects started until 2020 in the matrix or whatever that I've seen. Would I be right?
Yes, that's their forecast right now. So early in Q1 2020, they would actually have projects begin. So we're in pre-qualification. That will be followed by an evaluation period. Then there will be invitations to bid. Then they'll have to evaluate the bids. Then they'll have negotiations.
Yes.
Then they'll select a bid. Then they have to have a trust review and a decision by the trust, because Develop Nova Scotia is making recommendations to the trust. They're not making the decision. So all of that homework has to be done. Recommendations have to go to the trust. Then there has to be another round of contract negotiations. Then projects can begin.
Okay.
So it's very complex.
Okay. My last question, if, no, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. The last paragraph in the information, it says a non-mandatory information session called a respondents conference will be provided to prospective respondents to ensure all parties are aware of the details and services expected of them. The meeting will be held at the following location and time. Date January 16th, 9:30 to 11 Atlantic time. There's no place other than possibly Halifax at this time. But that is only for the providers of services, is it not?
Anybody who would like to be deemed to qualify as a service provider.
Okay. My question then to you, is it possible for, I'll say, municipal units or a group that is looking at doing a project or submitting a project able to attend that meeting to see who some of the respondents to this possible rural internet, whether there's 1 or 2, 5 or whatever?
It's a great question. I would have to ask it for an answer.
Okay, I'm going to tag on to this again. Sorry, Deputy Warden. If it's possible to attend this non-mandatory respondents information session, I would strongly recommend or would like to see that the municipality and or the RENs or whatever attend so that we know who possibly may be respondents or responders to supply the services. I'd like to know. I really would, and so on. Because rural internet has been talked, as we all well aware, at our NSFM fall conference and so on. And rural internet to Nova Scotia is very important. On that note, Deputy Warden, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's quite all right, Mr. Chair. You asked a few very poignant questions. I do have one quick question in regards to possible expansion of the Forest Glen internet service done through NCS Communications. I know it's a short timeline, but I'm just wondering if, since we own that infrastructure out in Forest Glen, if there's any way that we could possibly get a bid in to expand it. Now, even though I'm saying that, I do know that I don't want to see a patchwork of solutions. However, that system there, for the people that can get it, works very well. It has very little problems with weather, trees and stuff like that, if you can get it. The biggest problem is number one, the tower isn't quite tall enough, and number two, we still have not gotten any agreements or have any agreements to possibly bounce signals off of other existing towers like the one out in North Kemp where the old fire tower station was. And that would greatly expand the amount of people or the coverage of the municipality that could have, along with some other areas that Mark Blinn has identified that could help out this area. Also, on that same route, like I do know that in Councillor Allen's area, there's a lot of areas which is very close to the central population of Yarmouth County that cannot get internet service as well. And I just don't want to, I know it's a lot of work for staff, but I don't want to drop any opportunities to possibly partner with an existing company that already provides service in our local area. I'm just afraid that this is going to go closer to the population areas and not help out the off the beaten path, so to speak.
I can speak to that a
Yeah,
little
go
bit,
ahead.
if you let me, Mr. Ward.
Go ahead.
There's nothing precluding an expansion of that service at the Forest Glen Tower, whether or not our project gets awarded through the Internet Trust. So it doesn't have to be an either or, it can be an and both. What I would suggest would be, if council is interested and they would like to know, I would suggest that we identify who would get missed on the project going forward to the Internet Trust in the Forest Glen area, and identify who, because any investment in expanding the service on the Forest Glen Tower is finite because of the topography. So that tower can go as high as the federal government will let it, but there are limitations on how many people you'll reach no matter what. So we would have to do an analysis on who's falling in the gap. So I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not saying that council should feel like it's an either or. It can be an and both.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Was there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move on. 7.5, Port Maitland River and Harbor, letter from the Canadian Coast Guard. I can read you the letter from Coast Guard Canada pertaining to the issue that we were dealing with last summer and so on. Dear Mr. Anthony, thank you for your correspondence of October 22nd, 2018 regarding a substance observed around the wharf and beach of Port Maitland. The Coast Guard is committed to ensuring an appropriate response to all reports of marine pollution occurring in Canadian waters. When a marine spill is observed, it should be reported immediately to Coast Guard Environmental Response Office at 1-800-565-1633. With respect to the pollution observed at the Port Maitland River and Harbor area, we are aware of this situation and will work with the municipality of Yarmouth and local residents to ensure that the situation is addressed appropriately. Thank you for sharing your concerns on this matter. This letter was received on December 6th of 2018 and so on. I just wanted to read that so the general public would know that the Coast Guard is going to be there. I won't say that there isn't an issue or a situation at this time, but hopefully next spring that because of what was there this spring or what was supposedly what was seen and so on, that both Coast Guard and the Department of Fisheries will take it a little more serious and act a little quicker on the issue. New business. 8.1. The November development report, you had that in your package. What is the wishes of council? Go ahead, councillor.
I'll move that we accept the November development report as circulated.
It's been moved by councillor Trevor Cunningham. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by councillor Allen. Dayton. Any further discussion on the development report? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. 8.2, Ignite Lab launches ocean judging panel. This is for information purposes. I did take the opportunity because the municipality did sponsor. It was one of the sponsors of this competition. It was to deal with or to do with entrepreneurs in the ocean industry sector and so on. And quite pleased with the turnout. There was local participation and a few local people were able to walk away with wins and to move forward. They're not. So, was there any questions or concerns at this time? Hearing none, I'll move on. 8.3, Municipal Affairs. Central dispatch for fire departments for your information purposes. What is the wishes of council at this time on this topic or this information? You have it in your... Just a second. It is a letter, I believe, from the town of Shelburne. Go ahead, Deputy Warden. Okay. It is a respond, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I turned you on. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Oh, am I on? Oh, okay.
Yes.
First and foremost, there's a reference to this letter, and in the very start it says, Dear Mayor Madital, thank you for the letter of November 8th, 2018 to, where in the heck was it? The Deputy Minister. Do we have access to that? because I have no idea what the town of Shelburne had sent out.
I would have, normally when we have a correspondence string, we provide the copies of all the correspondence in the package. So I would have to take a look and see if the town actually carbon copied us on their letter to the minister.
Well, I'm only making assumptions here, and of course I've heard some of this on news reports, and I'll read a little bit of the letter that was sent to Mayor Matatal. We recognize the importance of a reliable professional dispatch system for Nova Scotia Fire Service, and we are aware that the Fire Services Association of Nova Scotia is considering options to improve dispatch services for fire departments. Municipal affairs staff from the Office of the Fire Marshal and the Emergency Management Office are participating in fire service discussions and are open to discussing various models in the context of fire services review. My first question is what was the letter that the town of Shelburne had sent to this? I guess my second question is, why do we have it? Because we've already made possible arrangements to go on to get our dispatch services for the municipality district of Yarmouth fire services should the Yarmouth dispatch shut down to go to Digby. And number three, I'm quite concerned over a central dispatch service which is being suggested. As we all know, that we used to have dispatch services for police here in Yarmouth County. They got centralized. And one thing that I'm upset about is the town of Shelburne is a rural area. Whether they want to think that or not, they are in an area like outside of HRM. We all know what happens when you have a centralized service. It does not work as well as local. I did not hear any comments from our local fire departments that they wanted to work on a central dispatch service. Have not one inkling of it. I would not support this at this time unless we have direction or discussions with our own local fire departments in order to move forward in that direction. We know what our fire department said in the municipality of Yarmouth. We want to keep what we have. I don't know where this is all going, but I know one thing, I wasn't consulted.
Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Victoria.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were carbon copied on the response from the Deputy Minister, so that's why we have the letter, and that's why it's in your package. If you recall last summer when the President of the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia came to Council, Mr. Jim Roper, came to meet with our volunteer fire departments and talk about how to navigate where we are in terms of dispatch services. He actually talked about this dialogue that's been going on for a while. And if you'll take a look at the letter again, it references a professional and reliable dispatch service. It does not say centralized. And Mr. Roper referred to that when he was with us, that just because police and EHS were centralized, it doesn't mean that if fire services were fire dispatch was globalized, that it would be centralized. They're not necessarily the same thing. So I think I answered your questions. Firstly, there's been no consultation yet. This is all just discussion at the fire service review level. And secondly, we have the letter because the Deputy Minister chose to carbon copy all of the municipal units outside of HRM.
Is there any further discussion at this time? I understand where the deputy warden is coming from. When I first read this, I was kind of wondering and so on, because if I'm not mistaken, the town of Shelburne and some of the volunteer fire departments in the municipality of Shelburne were being handled by the Yarmouth Dispatch and so on. So when that went, I don't know which way that the municipality of Shelburne and or the town of Shelburne, what they have done in the interim and so on. And it really surprised me that they went and have already started suggesting through a central dispatch, and as the CAO stated, a reliable and professional dispatching system and for Nova Scotians on. Being a business owner and so on, sometimes you like to have a monopoly, but also not having a monopoly also has its benefits when you have competition and so on, and makes a better, you may sometimes get a little better price. I believe what the municipality of Yarmouth is doing in the interim here right now for our volunteer fire departments, looking at going with the Digby Dispatch, that benefits all of us again, because now Digby will be able to even upgrade possibly and do more and do better and so on for this area and so on. And here's the other thing that's very important, we're always fighting for, they'll hire local people in Digby and so on, or in the surrounding area and so on. If this is, I'm going to say central, or they have 2 or 3 central, and whether it's in Truro, yes, people in Truro would get hired, but if me right now, I'd say Digby, stay there, run with that. But go ahead, Councillor Cushion.
I'm not going to drag this on very much, but I'm pretty disappointed in this type of information coming out now when the fire dispatch problem came about early spring or last winter there, and we're just getting something like this now and trying to start something new. I find this very confusing. I wish we had been in the loop earlier about this so we could have more discussion on this, and now we've committed to Digby more or less, and I'm not 100% happy with that either, but you know, I'm pretty disappointed with this, so.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do know that this does not say anything about a central fire dispatch. However, there's 2 news stories, both dated Friday, December the 14th of 2018, in regards to the Town Council in Shelburne passed a motion to support and taking the lead in approaching the province in regards to a centralized service. Also in here, it says, I'll bring it up here, in regards to the, it says in this story, where is that? Last night. I'll get it, just hold on.
Is the internet slow?
No, it's called, my reading is very slow. Shelburne's fire chief had indicated that to council that there's support for a central dispatch among many fire chiefs. That may be very well in the municipality of Shelburne and the town of Shelburne, but I can almost certainly say that that is not the case, or at least I have not spoken to the fire chiefs in the municipality district of Yarmouth. We've all had many meetings in here in that regards, and they told us loud and clear they want to keep what they have. And that was that. There was not one word about a centralized fire dispatch service, not one. Now, I'll just leave it at that, because I might get myself in a little bit of trouble here. But until I hear something different from our own local fire departments, I do not believe that a central fire dispatch service is what the municipality district of Yarmouth's fire chiefs want.
On that note, just wondering, the CAO mentioned, would council like to have Mr. Roper come back and have further discussion so that you are more informed on, I'm not saying that you support or don't support a central, but he could probably give us an update of where they're at this time, so we'd have a better understanding. Is that something that council would like to do? That would be you fellow councilors are all right with that? And either they can make a presentation, or he can make a presentation to council, and or if we wish to have the fire chiefs to attend, would that be so that they have a clear understanding at the same time, or?
How about I have a conversation with
With
Mr. Roper first?
Okay, yeah, okay. We'll have the CAO, so that's just a request of staff to do. We don't need a motion, I don't think, to do that? No, I think so. Okay, thank you. Let me... Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor. Go ahead,
Mr.
Councillor.
Chair, the next item, the Thermodynamics Limited Solar PV project development, I apologize, I'm going to declare a conflict. I did not
Yes.
initially at the beginning of the meeting, so I
No,
will
it's quite all
now.
right. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. 8.4, Thermodynamics Limited, Solar PV Project Development, Installation and Commissioning Agreement. A motion to approve the agreement as it is in your package. You have that? What is the wishes of, or discussion of council? Go ahead, Councillor Allen.
Well, I would like to say that I think this is a great addition to our green energy initiative. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the Thermodynamics Limited Solar PV Project Development, Installation, and Commissioning Agreement.
Moved by Councillor Allen. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Cushion. Was there any further discussion? I do have one piece, if you don't mind, to comment on Councillor Allen mentioning that for the green energy initiative and so on. Anytime that a municipal unit can partake anywhere with Nova Scotia Power on any of these style of projects, it is a benefit to that municipal unit in two ways. There is usually a cost recovery and or cost recovery and profit in a project of this nature over the long term. But what is more important than anything else, it makes better connections between Nova Scotia Power and that municipal unit. A lot of people sometimes, I know, as we stated earlier, when the power goes off in your area or your district, people get very upset and so on. But we also have to realize Nova Scotia Power, they are very proactive now. When they know there's going to be a storm, they usually have their emergency center set up. They usually have crews and so on ready to respond to outages and so on. They can't fix it within 5 minutes of it going out, but Nova Scotia Power has improved drastically over the last few years on their response and so on. So when a municipal unit has this opportunity to do projects through a third party, it is a great benefit to the municipal unit and so on. So, on that note, if there's no further discussion, are you ready for the question? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. You can, I'm sorry, Councillor. Again, 8.5, Nova Scotia Power, November 29th, 2018, power outage, unforeseen circumstances for information purposes. I would hope that you as fellow councillors have some, I wouldn't say questions, but some discussion on that. It's in your package. It's a lot of good information and so on pertaining to the reasons why we had the power outage and so on and how they handled it. What is the wishes of council? It's your opportunity to speak to the public on behalf of Nova Scotia Power. It is information, as you're well aware, of what happened to the grid system and so on. And because of power outages in certain places and the overload, their thermal switches kicked in and shut down power to a larger percentage of the province in order to save some of that. Go ahead, Councillor Cushion.
The only thing I'll say is that I believe Nova Scotia Power is doing an excellent job in trying to keep the power going across Nova Scotia, in our area also, for sure, for the storms that we have and the type of storms that we have and the challenges that they deal with during these storms. I think they do a very, very good job and very professional at it, because we all know that electricity, what they're dealing with, can be pretty fatal very quickly if something's done right. So I think Nova Scotia Power is doing a very good job by letting us know about storms coming up and having everything ready for them to attack the problems once the storm is over. So I think they do a good job.
Go ahead, councillor.
I mean, obviously something went very wrong. There were a lot of people without power, and that's unfortunate. But I do see, I mean, they've described what they're going to do moving forward, and we can only hope that they follow through on that. They've got a third party that they've employed to investigate the facts around the matter, and I'm hopeful that it won't occur again. But again, as a council, we can't guarantee that, so it's unfortunate. We trust that they'll not allow this to happen again.
Hopefully to the extent that it wasn't, but the weather we had on Monday and then what we had on Tuesday, that was a very wet snow and coming down on a lot of spruce trees which line a lot of our roads, touching wires and so on. And over the last number of years, you've seen that they've had tree cutting or tree trimming crews here in Yarmouth County, and there's a couple stationed here all the time that are continuously cutting back trees, and whether it's hardwood or whether it's spruce trees and so on. They've committed to doing, working at it continuously and so on. Will there be the odd time that power is going to go out? Yes. I didn't hear of any power out on Tuesday. I don't know in my area. I don't know if up your way if there was power outages or not, but there were some. So do you know if they were long? Yes. Yep. For a very long time, or was it 3 hours? Was it? Is that right? Is that right? Okay. See, the one thing about sometimes when there's a power outages and so on, Nova Scotia Power, then they flag that. When I've talked to them, they flag if the power was off in your area. They flag that. Not that they're going to go over and do anything this winter, but next spring they may be over and checking how old are the lines, how old are the poles, and it's a kind of a move forward to do replacement and do repairs and so on. So, go ahead, Council Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In this information letter we have, there's something that caught my eye in that regards, and in regards to climate change adaptation that they've been working on, and there's some facts that they put in here. The average annual wind gusts above 80 kilometers an hour have more than doubled from 43 hours in 2009 to 2013 to 91 hours in 2014-2018. as measured in weather stations from Halifax, Yarmouth, Greenwood, and Sydney. So that says a lot right there.
Yes.
Our climate is changing. I've noted over the past few years, I find it awfully windy compared to what it used to be. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you noted that they are flagging trouble areas, and something that I can say for sure that they've done, and we did not lose power during any of these power outages out in the along most of the 340. They've done a lot of work in tree cutting and brush cutting and working on the main transmission lines from the Sissibu and stuff like that. Yes. The power was out. It was kind of funny. The power was out heading towards Yarmouth. Yes. But when you went to the Carleton substation by Sloan's Lake, there in, it was on. Yeah. So that shows where they've done a lot of work and a lot of major clearing of the transmission lines. It has worked. Yeah. But it was interesting how the power went out. They have backup systems to protect the power grid, and this is one of the first times, from my understanding, when I've read from reports that you see online and in the newscast, that it was a cascade system. One system was shutting down to protect the whole system, so we could have been, the system actually worked so that they could get the power on quicker.
Yep.
The only thing that I could suggest to residents that, yes, we are living in changing times, and you should be prepared at all times for power outages and things like that.
Yep.
It's still kind of funny. We just finished speaking about internet. People without power weren't complaining about the power being out. They're complaining that their internet was down.
Yeah.
And the internet needed power. And that's what I found kind of funny.
Yeah.
Power is an essential service, so why isn't internet and cell service? We'll find out.
Yeah. Councillor Cushion, you,
Yeah, one last word I'll say is that, you know, Councillor Cunningham was mentioning about the increase of the winds, but yesterday's storm with the heavy winds that there was, and then the wet snow and then freezing, makes ice on the wires and makes a lot of weight, and that's why there's such a sporadic outage around. And yes, for the tree clearing, when I see a lot of that too in my travels that I do where the main transmission lines are going through there. I think Nova Scotia Power is again doing a great job in trying to do the best they can with what we have. So you know.
well, usually, if I may, I have a couple last comments. Usually, the power is out when it's nasty out, and they usually still try to get out and reinstall power, you know, in a bad working condition and so on. They do have limits and so on, but they do that. But you folks all get updates from Nova Scotia Power, do you not? And when we stop and think about that, they do that for each elected official and so on across Nova Scotia. They try to keep us updated on where they're at, what's happening within the province. And I appreciate that. Anytime I've talked to Lisa McDonald, she's off on leave at this moment or at this time, and but I always had good conversations with her when I called her directly or whatever. So no, they're just another company in business, and they're doing the best they can. And I like I say, when we can work with them, it's to our advantage. So on that note, we'll move on. 8.6, Municipal Affairs, Water Shortage Challenges, Local and Regional Solutions for Information Purposes. And I guess at this time, I would hand this over to the CAO. I know she's been diligently working at that, though.
So, as you're aware, the minister asked for a meeting with municipalities who were affected by the water shortage this past summer, and a number of municipalities met. Following that meeting, there was a conference call with municipalities who had attended that meeting from our region, the Tri-Counties, and we discussed kind of a coordinated approach to making a submission to the minister. So I have each municipal unit's location and what they would like to do with that location. And basically what the ask from the minister is that we submit concepts to the minister, and then we start hammering out the details. So I'm responsible for consolidating those responses, and I do not have that work finished yet, but it will be done and submitted to the minister first of the new year.
Yeah. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. 8.7, Canadian Combat Support Brigade, the 4th Engineer Support Regiment, 4th ESR, for information purposes. I had just received this here within the last couple of weeks and forwarded to the CAO, and you'll see that there is a project application and so on, and the deadline is what, January 14th?
But I do have an update.
Oh, do you? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So an update will be going forward through our Recreation Department to have some work done. So basically, this is a group of individuals who work for the Armed Forces, and they're coming to our community to do some training. And while they're here, they look for community projects to do as part of the application of that training. So they're not coming till next fall, but they have to plan ahead. So the Recreation Director will be submitting some work related to our trails. just because we submit doesn't mean we'll get approved. But we are submitting an application to have a project done with these individuals while they're here. And I do want to thank Scott Muse from the town of Yarmouth. I think that's correct, right? For bringing this forward. He's connected to this group, and he's made it available to us to have a project submitted, so.
Is there any questions? I don't have questions, but I think I realize what the CAO has just spoken about. But I want to give to the general public what we're talking about here. There'll be over 800 members of the Canadian Armed Forces, including the Canadian Army, the Royal Canadian Navy, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the reservists. There will be over 80 military vehicles. They will be looking at approximately 15 plus projects within the community. The community is from Digby, is it, around to Shelburne? Around to Shelburne. That's the area. Their base camp will be in Yarmouth. They supply their own electricity, but they will be looking to purchase locally any consumables, contract for sanitation, laundry, et cetera, The one main camp that they'll be setting up in Yarmouth will be 600 plus people at that camp, plus they'll be setting up 4 small camps within Southwest Nova. This is a great opportunity for Yarmouth County and so on to have something of this nature and so on in our area. I think it'd be quite, I'll call it quite an attraction for us to have and to see how they operate and so on. It's good training, as they said, for them and so on. So I just wanted to kind of give an update on that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, this is a pretty impressive looking
Isn't it?
project, having those 800 folks come here. Now they can do projects, but it says they cannot purchase any materials, lumber, gravel, nails. So I'm assuming that we will work with them through the Recreation Department to provide all of those materials. Okay. And you know, obviously this is a good opportunity to have a lot of work done, so I'm sure we'll take full advantage of
If
it.
you have, yeah. They can't purchase any materials, but the nails that they can't buy, they can drive, they can pound in. Any gravel that we purchase, they can spread. Any of that, they just can't, they cannot purchase it. And it's basically for nonprofit organization. So on your trails to, or rails to trails, any of that kind of issues, they do, they'll build ramps and so on for, I'll say, like Legion halls, et cetera, you know, do this kind of work and so on. So it's very beneficial that way. Go ahead, Councillor.
So I'm assuming we'll get an update shortly about how we can optimize for Yarmouth and area,
Yes.
the work that they can do.
Well, given the short deadline on a project submission, we're going to have that one project submitted through Recreation for work on our trails.
Which can include
I'll have
quite a
more
few things.
detail on that at a subsequent meeting. I'm not exactly sure the scope on that.
Go ahead, Councillor. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I know this timeline's short, but I guess the question is, are we leaving anything on the table that we might, what's the feeling around that? I'm not certain I can gauge that. So are we missing out on something that we might otherwise be able to have done in Yarmouth when these folks are here?
So what I had asked my team was, do we have a project that's in conceptual stage or even a little more advanced that we could meet that deadline with? And other than what we're already working on and already committed to a process and a partner with, we don't have anything.
If I may, it would be kind of nice, it would be really nice. We have over two miles of fence at the airport, and on the inside and the outside. It'd be kind of nice to have brush cutting done all the way around. You know, you throw them with a workforce of that nature, it wouldn't take them very long, but I don't know if where it's a municipally owned facility, whether that would fall into scope or not.
It would.
It would?
I know that the management at the airport is aware of this, so whether or not they're putting a project forward, I don't know,
Okay.
but I can absolutely ask that question and clarify for council.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I can think of another project that would be very interesting with the Canadian Combat Support Engineer Support Regiment is our ramp at the Yarmouth Light.
Is that a possibility? The ramp?
So there's a rule that it can't take work away from local contractors, and we've been to market on that, unfortunately. Sorry.
You were close, but not close enough. Hearing nothing else, we will move on to 8.8, highlights of the Nova Scotia NSFM, Nova Scotia Federation of Municipality Board Report from December 7th. You have that in your package. I'm not sure if there's any questions or concerns on that. Oh, go ahead, Deputy Warden.
No, there's no concerns, just a couple comments. Also, I wanted to point out that they are concerned about the rural internet. That was item number 11. The board agreed to write a letter to Develop Nova Scotia outlining the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities' concerns and to invite Develop Nova Scotia to present at the next board meeting. So they're also on top of the rural internet issue, which is not only localized to the Yarmouth County area, but also all across the province. And something else that I'm happy to see is item number 8, Women in Local Government. The board agreed to reestablish a committee focused on supporting women, but renaming it to recognize that this is not just an issue for women. So that means young people and minorities, something that was brought up in many of the functions that I attended over the years, that there's not a lot of young people and visible minorities in politics, and at least the board's working forward to try to correct that problem. So that's just a couple of the things that they're working on. There's 11 that we have, but those are 2 that I would like to outline.
Okay. Good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to 8.9, the Bay Shore Community Club. And I believe Councillor Christian had a conflict there. You have that in your package, councillors. Don't know if there's discussion, or what is your thoughts on the request of that organization at this time? And you see there's some briefing notes from the CAO. As we're all well aware, any of these community organizations, seniors and so on, organizations, buildings, community halls and so on, are an important asset to the community. They're also, in a way, they provide a service to the community, which is an indirect service to the municipality on giving a location for seniors or young groups to be able to meet and have discussions or do projects and so on. So, Deputy Warden, go ahead.
What it boils down to is this group did not receive the funding that they were initially hoping for. And there's the 3 options that the CAO put forward is number 1, to comply with the terms of the grant approval per policy, or number 2, amend the approval letter and issue the first installment indicating I can't read all of that. No further funding will be received until all other funds are confirmed in writing. And number 3, contradict the policy to release the funds even if other funding sources do not approve the project. I personally don't like to contradict any policy that council has. For me, option 3 would be out. I know that they've fallen not on hard times, but they're sort of disappointed. So to comply with the terms of the grant approval per policy is a little strong, because we all agreed at the grant approval process that this was a good thing for the community. I would be more apt, and I may make a motion, not at this time, but I'd be more apt to amend the approval letter to issue the first installment indicating that no further funding will be received until all other funds are confirmed in writing. That would be my choice. As you all know, like I said before, is I hate to contradict council policy, but also I don't want to have an iron fist in that regard, and I think item number 2 would be a reasonable compromise. So therefore, I think I am going to make this a motion, whether someone seconds it or not. At least it can come up for discussion. I'm going to make a motion to amend the approval letter and issue the first installment indicating no further funding will be received until all other funds are confirmed in writing. So I'll make that a motion.
Okay. The motion has been placed on the floor by the Deputy Warden. Is there a seconder to that motion at this time? Is there a seconder to that motion at this time? Is there a seconder to the motion at this time? Hearing none?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'll second the motion to put it on the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Been moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Trevor Cunningham. You've heard the motion that, go ahead.
Yeah, just to, so we had agreed, I just want to make sure that the facts are straight in all of our heads, certainly. And so we had approved funding, and it was contingent on other levels of government funding it, and they did not receive that funding. Is that correct? Perhaps through you to the CAO?
Yes.
Portions of the funding have been confirmed. Parts of that confirmed funding have been received. Other funding applications are yet to be approved.
Just a follow-up question there. Is there any reason to doubt that they will not be receiving those other pieces of the funding? Is it just a matter of the bureaucracy at the other 2 levels moving slowly, or things not having been submitted on time? Is it reasonable to assume that they will receive those other pieces of funding?
I think it's unwise to assume anything.
And another question, so have they received enough funding currently to sort of, if we were to approve this motion and grant that first installment, is that sort of like, have they got enough to kind of match the funds to start the project? And if you know what I mean, if you know what I'm saying.
So the project has been started, and if I'll just direct your attention to a little bit of language in the letter we received. The group acknowledges that should the funding that has not been approved, should that not get approved, the group is acknowledging that they would have to fundraise that difference in order to complete the project.
So the motion,
So the only money that the group has received for the entire project so far is 20% of the $35,000 approved by Heritage and Culture. Yes, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
yep.
They're withholding 10,000.
Withholding, sorry, yes, I have that backwards, yep. So, I mean, they definitely have a good chunk of money, and they're underway, they're building. And they actually have done some fundraising in recognition that there could be a gap to complete the project.
so I guess in my opinion, I think the motion makes sense that we would extend that first installment and then take a wait and see approach, right? So I think that makes sense in my mind. So I can support the motion.
Okay. Was it, I'm sorry, Councillor Allen?
Well, I guess I'm reading that the terms of this grant state that the funding is contingent upon funding being received from all the sources. So when we originally accepted this grant, obviously we did it on the assumption that all the money was going to come from all the other places. Now we're not sure. So I'm not 100% sure. Should we be giving out half of the money before we know, like, we're kind of going against what we originally went with, right? Like, we said that we weren't going to give any money until we knew that they had all their funding in place. And now this motion, we're going to give half the money before we know that all the money is in place. So we're kind of changing our, but I guess you want to amend it to give you want to give half of the grant regardless of whether the money gets, the other funding comes in or not.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that's absolutely correct, and I did at the very start of the motion, and I'll read the motion again, to amend the approval letter and issue the first installment indicating no further funding will be received until all other funds are confirmed in writing. So they have received some funds, and that's the reason why I thought option 2, which was a good option for us to have, because they have started construction, they have received some funding, and it is in working with the group. Now, it also states in there that no further funding will be received until all other funds are confirmed in writing. So
Yep.
until they receive a letter,
Yep.
then they get no more. I think that's a happy medium. We could just say that we contradict the policy that we currently have in that regards and release all the funds. I'm not in favor of that personally, and comply with the terms of the grant approval policy. There's always things that go up in the air. There's always unsure, but they did receive some of the funding, so therefore I believe that we should at least grant half of the funding that we already set forward. It's not like we're going to be adding any extra funding. That's the way that I look at it anyway.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, given that the federal funding is in question and that the provincial funding that was applied for, not 100% of that was approved, could I suggest to council that they also request an amended budget from the group for the project? Because the budget that was submitted when the grant was applied for is no longer the budget. For example, the budget that was submitted when the grant was applied for shows a $15,000 contribution from this council. This council only approved 10 and over 2 years. The project funding from Nova Scotia Community Culture and Heritage is showing at $41,625. They got $35,000.
But was it not basically fundraising?
They are.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Counselor, go ahead.
So to move it along another step, I'll move an amendment to the motion that we also include a request for an amended budget to be included as soon as possible, or submitted as soon as possible.
Counselor Allen?
So I'm going to ask this. So you want to amend the motion. So do you want to release the money before we see the new budget? Do you?
The motion just simply saying that as soon as possible, that they would
Yeah, shows.
submit an amended budget. So it doesn't speak to that.
Okay.
Okay, first, is the mover fine with the amendment that,
I'd be.
go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd be fine with that amendment, but do we not make that a separate motion and vote on
Yes.
that motion and then
Yeah.
vote on the original motion?
Yes.
So we would need a seconder for the
Yes, no,
original.
I realize that. I just wanted to know, no sense going for a seconder if you're not interested in.
No, actually I would, and I'd be willing to second the motion,
Okay.
second the amendment. I could do that, but
No, we'll do it
We'll do it-
experimental wise.
we'll do it this way.
We'll move the amendment.
I'll second the amendment to the motion, original motion.
You've heard the mover of the amendment, Trevor Cunningham. Seconder, Deputy Warden John Cunningham. Do you have the amended motion? You all understand the amendment? Councillor Allen, you understand? He's, go ahead.
Yes, I I understand. I understand it. I'm just kind of grappling with it, I guess, as far as should we see a revised budget before we release the funds, I guess is what is in my, is my train of thought. If we're going to ask for a new budget, if we're going to release the funds, why ask for the new budget, I guess? So,
Right,
Go ahead,
Mr. Chair,
Councillor.
my understanding was that we were going to, because there'd been goodwill, good faith on behalf of the community group, and they've gotten some dollars, they've raised some money, they want to proceed with sort of the first half of the project with half of our funding, essentially. That sounds reasonable. The motion, the original motion that John made and was seconded, put on the floor before and then the amendment came up, speaks to the fact that we would be approving that half. We wouldn't necessarily need the amended budget, but we would certainly need an amended budget to proceed with the remainder,
Sure.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, are you ready for the question? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? The motion's carried. That's the amended motion. Now, still on the floor is the original motion with the amendment added to it. Was there any further discussion on the original motion, which is to release the 5,000, not to release any more, and with the amendment that they have to, I'll say, show a revised budget before any more is released. So is there any discussion on that? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Do you want to get Councillor Cushion there, if you would, please? To give you just an idea, to do what we just done here, making an amendment and so on, is good for council to fully, it's, to go through that process and so on. It's a good learning curve. 8.10, request for decision, water from the Mariner Center. You have that in your package, councillors. What is your wishes and so on that request and so on? I think it's we need high speed here. It's quite impressive, the amount of water that was in 2016 and in 2018 at Mariner Center. And just to give you an idea, I'm not sure at the Arcadia School through the art, having that water hose out there. One of the last times that I spoke with Mr. Bonner, they were over 40 or 60,000 gallons they had gone there, and I think he told me the final tally was in the area of 100. But anyway, did you wish? Go ahead, Councillor.
So I think the recommendation of the CAO, and I'll read that. The Emergency Measures Coordinator for Modi has indicated on several occasions how accommodating the team at Mariner Center was and how they took initiatives to provide for the residents during the drought. And given the significant work staff and management of the Mariner Center did on behalf of Modi, and as a demonstration of Modi's commitment to strong relationships with partners that are built on trust and integrity, is recommended that Council choose option 2 and 3. And option 2 is request the town of Yarmouth forgive the sewer charges for the 766,000. I'm assuming that's liters. Gallons. Wow, even more of water, which was hauled away and not discharged in the town's wastewater system, so that seems reasonable. And voluntarily pay to the Mariner Center half the water consumption expenses, $2,400, $1.41 as a proactive expression of appreciation for their role in addressing the water shortage in 2018. So having said that's the recommendation, I'd also like to make that a motion, and so I move that.
Okay. It's been moved by Councillor Trevor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Gerard LeBlanc. Was there any further comment? I have one, if nobody else has any comments. Is the gallonage that was said there, you know, and when you say the number of 766,000 gallons, that is a number. Can you imagine 700, almost 800,000 gallons of water in one spot? Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes, there were no units on that 766,000 figure, and so I assume they were liters, so I was off by factor 4. So
Yeah.
You're right, it's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water that was, and just goes to show, and that was in a short period of time, in one little framework, and so on. Goes to show, that there is quite a demand for water and so on. So it's been moved and been seconded. Was there any further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Deputy Warden.
So with that math being done on an average of 250 gallon tank, so that means there was 3,064 approximately truckloads of water carried away from there?
Yep.
I knew it was busy. I didn't realize it was,
It was 7 days a week.
Yeah.
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 So like I said, I'm not disputing the water gallon, because I know that place was busy.
Yeah.
That there's trucks lined up one after another, 4 or 5 at a time, because I hauled a couple loads for a few residents out my way, but I know that place was always busy. So that just puts in perspective how much water was hauled away.
Yeah. And then there's the tank out in South Ohio.
Mm.
Okay. And like you say, at Arcadia, there was probably over 1 million gallons in total.
Absolutely.
Councillor Allen.
I also want to add to that this is the second time that the Mariner Center has stepped up for us in this, and the crew out there, I don't think anyone has ever had anything bad to say except for how accommodating they've been. So, as our CAO said, that's 7 days a week these guys are out there helping people get water. So just a big thank you to those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, by all means. So if there's no further discussion for the question? Question on the motion been called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. It was 8.10, 8.11. Attorney General, Government of Nova Scotia Oh, let me have a glass of water here. Let me have a drink of water. Accessibility plan for information purposes. You have that in your package, councillors. Is there any discussion that you wish to have on? You know what, a quiet bunch. I wish my kids had always been this quiet. Go ahead, councillor. I can always depend on you.
I guess other than to say that I'm glad to receive the letter here at council, and it's important work that we'll put a committee to.
Okay. Hearing nothing further. Reports. Oh, there goes there. Audit committee, no meeting. Bylaw and policy review. The last meeting was canceled. Emergency measures planning committee. I don't know if and or the emergency measures executive committee. We've had a meeting with Remo. That's the only thing, or to sit down and discuss Remo. So nothing going on right at this moment. I will comment that I did talk with Max after that Remo meeting or discussion and so on, and he already has a lot of good ideas and so on once the new Remo is in place and so on. And I was impressed with his enthusiasm and his desire. He seems more than willing to put time and effort into this. So, Occupational Health and Safety Committee.
We did have a meeting this week, Mr. Chairman, and we're moving forward with the certification with the Nova Scotia Construction Safety Association. So that's our staff, Occupational
Yes.
Health and Safety Committee. Moving forward on that, the committee is proactively working with management to ensure, you know, safety for staff. And I would say that that certification is a big training vehicle. So getting that certification is actually training staff up on some things they hadn't thought of about safety in their workplace. So it's been a great process.
Okay. If I can make a comment, I was to health and safety meeting in Halifax for across Nova Scotia, and I was impressed. They done a lot of safety things and so on, breathing and just safety around job sites and so on. But what impressed me more than anything else, and what really struck home to me, is the neglect that people take in their hearing. So we go out and sit on our lawnmower and away we go. And as they explained there and showed on video and so on, sitting on your lawnmower for a couple hours a day, or excuse me, a couple hours a week over a period of years, each time it affects your hearing a little bit. And they really stress the importance of wearing hearing protection. And what surprised me more than anything else, the best thing that you can use is the foam plugs that you put in your ears. Ear muffs are good, and a lot of the other ones and so on, but the foam ones that you kind of squeeze and put in your ears are the very best. They protect your ears and so on. You still hear, but they take out the vibrations and so on. And but they stress that the hearing and so on, your eye safety and so on is important too. But hearing we usually neglect. You just don't think, because you're hearing that vibrating machine for a couple hours a week, don't bother you, but it does. So on. Heritage Advisory, I don't believe there's been. No, didn't think so. Planning Advisory.
No.
Deputy, no meeting. Yarmouth County Police Advisory, not until February, is it, Liz? Is the next meeting is in February? Yes, yep, okay. Yarmouth Recreation?
Chair, it's going to be,
Oh.
the December meeting did not occur, but there will be a meeting in
Okay, thank you. Friends of Yarmouth Light? Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes, well, council is aware of the situation with the Friends of the Light now. We're looking to do a new structure there. So, but I also want to mention, because of the Yarmouth Light area, to let the council know and the public know that work has commenced on the causeway at Cape Richoux. There's been some armor stone placed already on the inner part of the harbor where the road was eroding away, and I've asked the engineers if we could have some armor stone put on the ocean side also in a certain area, which I identified. But work is progressing. Unfortunately, it's the bad weather that we're having and whatnot makes it pretty hard. But as I had mentioned to the Vanguard, when is a good time to do a project, because of the busy area down there. Any time of the year is pretty busy, and then in the wintertime it's just because of the weather. But it is progressing, and they are making some headways there. So hopefully at the end of the day, the project will be completed, and it certainly looks like it's going to hit. I've seen some drawings of it, so I think it looks pretty good. So
Okay.
So it's ongoing.
Thank you. Joint Green Energy, there's been no meeting that I know of, I don't believe. Mariner Center Management Board, I didn't see any report in my, on my computer. Regional Economic Management Board, been no meeting. Western Counties Regional Library, Councillor Durkee isn't here this evening. YASTA, has there been no meeting? Waste check, we haven't had a meeting since my last report. Our next meeting is on January 14th, and I will not be at that meeting to chair it. I'll be in Halifax. But I do want to give you, councillors, an update pertaining to solid waste issues within Nova Scotia. This time, as we're all well aware, Minister Miller is the new Minister of Environment. And at our NSFM fall conference, there was a resolution passed pertaining to EPR. I've been in contact, or they've been in contact with me, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. It surprised me, and I made the comment to William when he called. Didn't think I said I knew we passed a resolution, but that was just here a month ago, and already they're working very diligently on EPR. They want to set up meetings. They want to get letters sent out to different chambers and different organizations, and they want regional chairs priority group to still be involved. And so we're working on setting up a meeting with Regional Chairs Priorities Group to meet with NSFM, William, to have a discussion, then to meet with the executive of NSFM. We have done a lot of work through Regional Chairs on this one topic, and we've done a lot of work on the single-use plastic bag, and we done what we were asked to do, and then the provincial government, they didn't throw it out. They just said at this time they are not willing to do anything on the single-use plastic bag, and that was the whole issue of moving forward on the single-use plastic bag, was to have it banned, and then they put it on in a holding pattern. So I had the discussion with NSFM, said I do not want to get this into a holding pattern with EPR, because this is a financial gain for every municipal unit within the province, and there will be an election in 2020 provincially, and I don't want this to drag into 2019 and then be put on a back burner in 2020. So we're going to try and set up meetings with environment, with NSFM, with the executive, and try to keep this going, because I have a feeling it's going to roll along and then be put on a back burner. But so they're working very diligently on that one topic. So let's see where it goes from there. Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission. Anybody wish to we had a meeting on Monday night. I don't know if John or Lauren, you have any comments to the meeting, or wish to make any comments? No? No? Okay, go ahead. Okay, Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. It was actually quite a short meeting compared to what some of them are. We went through our financial statements through December 14, 2018. We also discussed some of the issues for the Novatech Foundation link excavation supervision, port divestiture plan. We discussed that. Floating dock concept, I guess we're not going to be moving forward with that for a few reasons. Port abandoned vessel policy, board approval, and we also discussed a little bit on the medical clinics and what the loss of a few of the doctors, where they're moving, how that's going to affect or possibly affect the our health department, our Harbour South. That's what the word I'm looking for. Harbour South. And that's pretty well it. It was a fairly quick meeting, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to forward them to me or the warden.
Okay. The only one other comment is that on the Domtech project for the demolition and so on, we are basically finished with that project. Nova Braids, they have basically the cement, I believe, has been poured and the forms have been removed. And talking with the acting general manager, Mr. Shea, there's only one little glitch left on a part of the masonry work that's probably be done in the spring, and then that'll finish that project off completely. And then in the spring we'll be doing the sprinkler system line has to be changed for potable water, and they're revamping that, and then that complete project will be completely done. and so on. And the land has all been sold. That's all been looked after. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
One thing that should be noted that water line that you mentioned was of the old asbestos pipe
Yes.
variety.
Yes.
And it had to be changed.
Yeah.
For health reasons. It's not because we didn't have to, but asbestos pipe, that we all know what asbestos is. So it was
Yeah.
thought better by the board to just replace it for potable water.
Okay, Yarmouth Waterfront Development Authority, I don't know if there's been any meeting. Yarmouth International Airport, I can tell you there hasn't been any meeting. I'm a little disappointed. I didn't see the 11. Last one is the Signs Committee. Has there been any meeting or anything? The last item, number 10, in-camera recommendations, and I believe there's one. Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As per recommendation from in camera, I make a motion to approve the CAO evaluation process as circulated on the in-camera meeting.
Okay, we have a mover. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Been moved by Deputy Warden John Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Is there any further? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just for specificity, there were a number of documents in that package. Is the motion approving all of the documents in the package or just the actual evaluation process?
All of. Go ahead,
That was to approve all of them,
Thank you.
Madam CAO. The reason why it is not out in public is because there's some things in there that in regards to financial and stuff like that. So
Personal. Oh. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Was there any further business of council? Does any councillor wish to state anything? This is your last meeting of 2018. Does anybody wish to say anything? Always Councillor Cunningham.
Just
Go ahead, Councillor.
we've had a great calendar year with lots of achievements, number of infrastructure projects that have been successfully completed, and just like to wish everybody here and everybody that's watching and everybody in the municipality a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and a great holiday season.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? I will make a couple of final comments here this evening. On January 16th, I have been asked, as Warden Richard Donaldson and Mayor Pam Mood, to participate in a State of the Region discussion at the Grand Hotel being put on by the Chamber of Commerce. If you can buy tickets to that, each one of the wardens, mayors, will give an overview of what happened or what took place in their municipal unit in 2018, what we'll be looking forward to in 2019, and then there'll be a question and answer period. So if you have nothing to do on the 16th, please come and defend your ward and wherever you can. No, but if you have that opportunity, please do so, eh? Please do so. Other than that, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have my glass on. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to wish everyone out there a happy, safe, and prosperous New Year. Please don't drink and drive. Call for a ride. My number is 902-740-5332. If you do need a ride, anytime, anywhere, no questions asked. Just want to make sure that our roads are safe for everybody this holiday season. And one more thing that should be noted, our New Year's Day levy will be happening this year at the Town Hall.
Thank you very much. I forgot that. I apologize. Other than that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Councillor Allen. Thank you very much.